When Jumanji arrived in theaters in 1995, it brought a kind of movie magic that perfectly captured the imagination of an entire generation. It was strange, funny, thrilling, and deeply emotional all at once. The story follows two children who discover a mysterious board game that can bring the wild jungle to life in their small town. When they start to play, they unknowingly release a man who has been trapped inside the game for decades. The film's mix of fantasy and reality made it stand out, but what truly made it unforgettable was the heart that beat beneath all the chaos. Robin Williams' performance as Alan Parrish gave the movie both its humor and its soul. Beneath the stampeding elephants and giant vines, the movie explored courage, loss, fear, and the struggle to grow up and face one's past. The idea for Jumanji began long before Hollywood got involved. It started with a short children's book written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg in 1981. The original story was only about 32 pages long and featured simple, haunting images of wild animals spilling out of a magical board game. It was mysterious and imaginative, but not nearly enough for a full-length movie. So when the book was adapted, the filmmakers expanded the idea into a massive adventure filled with humor, danger, and emotional stakes. They built upon the theme of facing fears and added a deeper human story about time, responsibility, and redemption. Robin Williams was the first major star considered for the lead role, but at first he wasn't sure he wanted to do it. He loved the story but worried that it might become just another visual effects showcase. What changed his mind was a rewrite of the script that focused more on Alan Parrish's emotional journey. Instead of being just a wild fantasy, it became a story about a boy who loses his childhood, spends years trapped in a magical jungle, and finally gets a second chance at life. Robin poured his heart into the performance, balancing comedy with vulnerability. His ability to make audiences laugh while also making them feel deep sympathy for Alan was what gave Jumanji its lasting power. Filming the movie was no easy task. The production took place mostly in Keene, New Hampshire, which stood in for the fictional town of Brantford. During shooting, the filmmakers transformed the quiet town into a place of chaos, with vines growing over buildings, elephants rampaging down the streets, and floods tearing through homes. The famous monsoon scene where water crashes through the Parrish house was filmed inside a massive water tank built on a soundstage. The practical effects were so intense that parts of the studio were accidentally flooded. Even today, the water sequences remain some of the most impressive physical effects in any 1990s movie. One of the most remarkable aspects of Jumanji was its groundbreaking visual effects. The film used a combination of real sets, animatronics, and early CGI created by Industrial Light and Magic, the same company behind Jurassic Park and Star Wars. The technology was still new, and animating realistic animals was a huge challenge. The monkeys, for example, were among the most difficult creatures to create because they had to move quickly, interact with real objects, and blend seamlessly into live-action footage. The famous stampede scene, which includes elephants, rhinos, zebras, and pelicans, took nearly an entire year to complete. Every single frame was carefully designed, with layers of computer-generated animals combined with live-action dust and debris. At the time, these effects were revolutionary and set new standards for family adventure films. But Jumanji wasn't just a visual spectacle. It was also filled with clever creative choices. The costume design for Alan Parrish told its own story. When he emerges from the jungle, his outfit looks handmade from leaves, vines, and scraps of rope, giving the impression that he had survived for years using whatever materials he could find. Every element of his look was carefully designed to show how he had adapted to the dangers of the jungle world. There was also a symbolic detail hidden in plain sight. The actor Jonathan Hyde, who played Alan's strict father, also played the villainous Hunter Van Pelt. This casting choice wasn't random. It represented Alan's internal struggle, the fear of his father's expectations, and the idea that his greatest enemy was a reflection of that fear. It gave the story a psychological depth that many viewers only realize after watching it again as adults. The rest of the cast also helped make Jumanji memorable. Bonnie Hunt played Sarah Whittle, the woman who witnessed Alan vanish as a child and spent her life trying to move on from the trauma. Her chemistry with Robin Williams felt authentic because they were longtime friends in real life, and their shared humor and warmth made the emotional scenes more believable. Then there was a young Kirsten Dunst, only 12 years old at the time, who played Judy Shepard. Despite her age, she handled dramatic scenes and complex visual effects work with maturity and confidence. Her performance, along with Bradley Pierce's as her brother Peter, grounded the movie in a sense of family and innocence amid all the madness. Every day on set came with challenges. Robin Williams was known for improvising lines, and while his spontaneous humor delighted the crew, it often made it difficult to keep a straight face during filming. The director, Johnston, encouraged him to add his own energy and wit because it made Alan's reactions feel more real. Williams's fast thinking and emotional honesty helped shape the tone of the entire movie, blending fear with laughter in a way few actors could. Behind the scenes, the filmmakers created multiple practical versions of the Jumanji board itself. The prop was not just a piece of decoration, and it actually worked. The spinning center, the glowing symbols, and even the eerie noises were all achieved using physical mechanisms and clever lighting effects, not just computer graphics. Only a few of these original boards were made, and one later sold at auction for over $60,000, proving how iconic the prop had become. When the film was finally completed, the crew wasn't sure how audiences would respond. Family adventure films in the mid-90s were risky, and Jumanji mixed fantasy with darker emotional themes, but when it premiered, it became an immediate success. Viewers loved the mix of humor, wonder, and heart. Children were fascinated by the idea of a magical game, while adults connected with the deeper story about facing one's fears and reclaiming lost time. The movie earned over $260 million worldwide, becoming one of the biggest hits of 1995. The ending of the film gave fans one final mystery. After Alan and Sarah finish the game, time resets and their lives are restored to normal. But in the final moments, the Jumanji board washes up on a beach in France, where two young girls discover it. This haunting conclusion suggested that the game's magic was eternal, that its strange power could never truly be contained. This idea would later inspire the loosely connected 2005 movie Zathura, also based on a book by Chris Van Allsburg, and eventually the modern Jumanji sequels starring Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart. Although new versions have come and gone, the 1995 original remains special because of its unique balance of practical and digital effects, its emotional storytelling, and Robin Williams' unforgettable presence. He often said he loved Jumanji because it was about taking responsibility and conquering fear. To him, the story wasn't about monsters or magic. It was about finding the courage to play the game of life, no matter how unpredictable it is. Nearly 30 years later, Jumanji still feels timeless. It stands as a reminder of how imagination and emotion can blend to create something truly magical. The movie captured the childlike fear of the unknown, the pain of regret, and the excitement of discovery. It showed that courage doesn't mean being fearless, but rather facing danger even when you are afraid. For millions who grew up in the 1990s, Jumanji was more than a film. It was an adventure that stayed in their hearts long after the credits rolled. And somewhere in the minds of every fan who ever rolled a dice in a board game, there's still that tiny flicker of wonder. What if the game came to life?